What would your tagline be?
Perhaps the dancing scientist. That works.
What would your autobiography title be?
Life is more than science. I think we've got to, as scientists, we need to have something outside of work and outside of science. I think that would be good.
Okay. And if you were to pack one snack for a picnic, what would it be?
Chocolate. Absolutely chocolate. No choice.
Okay. What is a must-have in your lab?
Kindness. That's probably not the answer most people would go for, but I think understanding of the people around you, and you spend a lot of time with these people. I think kindness and respect for the people around you, it improves the science a lot. As far as equipment, we have quite a bit of equipment in the lab, quite a few 3D printers that are a lot of fun to play with. But I think putting all the equipment aside, kindness or understanding is the most important thing in a science lab.
Okay. Window or aisle seat?
For long flights, aisle seat, so you can get up and walk around. Short flights, definitely a window seat.
Okay. And what do you do when you get out of the lab?
I do quite a bit of dancing. It's nice to get out of the lab and do something different. And dancing is something that distracts me a lot from that. I can't think about anything else while you're trying to figure out what your feet are doing. So, so it's a good distraction, and it's a lot of fun.
Okay. And what's your favorite type of dance?
I like Argentine tango a lot. Jive is a lot of fun as well. But I'm just starting to learn West Coast swing, and that's a lot of fun to do.
And how often do you dance?
About 3 times a week. So it's quite often. We have events on weekends as well, but on a standard week, 3 times a week during the weeks, about normal. It's it's a good distraction from research, and it's a very different way of thinking. And doing performances is very different to presenting a scientific paper at a conference. So it was quite challenging, but it's a lot of fun.
It's a good sport activity as well.
It is, yeah. It's hard work.
Okay. What would your superpower be?
Probably seeing into the future. I'd love to be able to see into the future, to see what the next scientific advance is going to be. Not so that I can use it, just so that I can get an idea.
Prepared for it.
The advances that are coming around now and that have been coming around for the last 10 or 15 years are just amazing. iPS cells, that type of thing. It's incredible what we can achieve now. We've got whole research fields based on that one discovery now. And it will be really interesting to see what happens 10 to 15 years from now. What other discoveries are going to be made that whole fields can be devoted towards that just don't exist. I'd leave it in there. I quite like that.
Okay, let's continue then. Which do you think is a dying hobby that should definitely come back?
When I was a kid, we used to make model aeroplanes and cars, and I always had a lot of fun doing that.
What is something you cannot do but would really like to learn?
Speak another language.
Okay. And if money was not an issue, what is your dream instrument that you would like to buy or have in the lab?
So we've just ordered a new electrode array system, which is really nice. That'll be fun. There's probably two bits of equipment that I'd love to either have or get access to. One is a high density electrode array for looking at what's happening in single cells and communication between cells. And the other one's a light sheet microscope. We do a lot of 3D cell culture, and it's quite difficult with confocal imaging to look at what's going on inside. So the standard techniques for looking inside these 3D gels is not really adequate. So a light sheet microscope allows us to look at what's going on throughout these entire 3D cultures. That would be really nice to have in there.
Okay. That's a good one. Project meeting or proposal writing?
Definitely project meeting. I don't mind proposal writing, but it's nice to interact with people and get some ideas from other people about where the project should go. So having meetings about projects and getting things underway is a lot more fun, I think.
Okay. How does a typical day look like for a scientist like you?
Yeah. It changes a lot day to day. Some days I'll be on the computer most of the day writing or analysing. I do a lot of computer programming. I can spend a few days in a row doing nothing but sitting on my computer. But it's nice to be able to head into the lab as well. So we have cell culture going on all the time, so a lot of our time is spent, or a little bit of time every day is spent doing cell culture work. So growing the tissues in the lab. Fancy. Yeah. But it just depends on what projects are going on and which students are around and what projects are going on with them at the time. So it can change quite a bit.
Okay, interesting. And I guess you work with a lot of different scientists, so what all kinds of scientists do you work with?
Yeah, our lab's quite interesting. We've got a lot of engineers, a lot of scientists and clinicians as well. So the engineers, we've got mechanical engineers, we've got electrical engineers, we've got materials engineers, all working together. We've got biologists, geneticists, physiologists working there as well. And we've got clinicians coming in often. So it's a good mix to actually get some really good outcomes.
Okay. And you work at a hospital. How is it different from working at a university?
I used to work in a university and it was quite good, but the research was very directed towards a biological question. And you get lost in the detail. So you're really drilling down to find out what's going on in the biology. Working in a hospital, we've got clinicians there that want a clinical outcome. They want a tool that they can use for their patients to help their patients. So we spend a lot more time concentrating on providing an outcome for the patients and providing something that can be used within the clinic. So the focus is quite different.
Okay, that must be interesting.
It is. Working with clinicians has been an eye-opener. It's taken me away from just concentrating solely on one specific question, and it's really changed the way that I look at science and research.
Okay. And what is the strangest experiment you have done in a lab? Probably quite a few, but...
Yes. We have 3D printers of different sorts. So a lot of people have been trying to print different materials. So you can purchase it's like a sand that mimics the dirt and sand that would be on the moon. So we got some of that and mixed it with different polymers to try and 3D print it to see whether you could actually use 3D printing on the moon to make devices that that you could actually use. It wasn't so successful, but it was a really interesting idea.
Yeah, it
and
is.
a bit of fun to play with.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
So you're adding in the aerospace aspect to your pool of scientists.
Yeah, it was just an idea that came up in the lab, and we thought we'd try it to
Why not?
to see what happened.
Okay. And as an Australian traveling the world, what are the most commonly asked questions?
I think the most common one is every animal in Australia still trying to kill you? Is that, are they everywhere, the snakes and the spiders? I think that's probably the most common one. The other ones would be, how long was the flight? I get that quite a bit. I think they're probably the main two questions that we get asked. But it's been really interesting to come across and talk to people. The animals in Australia are not all that scary.
Okay.
And they're not everywhere. We don't see them everywhere. We have seen a few snakes in the centre of Melbourne, but they're few and far between. If you go out into the country areas, you see a lot more spiders and snakes, but it's pretty easy to keep yourself safe. It's really not that scary.
Okay. And to ask you the question, how long was your flight?
From Melbourne to Abu Dhabi was 14 hours.
Wow.
And then from there to Frankfurt was 6.5 hours, I think. So it's quite a flight.
Yeah, we have the answers to the common questions to Australians now.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we are at the end. What's your favorite museum?
I went to the Natural History Museum in London. That's a spectacular place to visit. The building itself is amazing, but the displays they've got there are fantastic.
Okay.
I live probably 500 metres from the Melbourne Museum, which is somewhere I spend quite a bit of time. So I've got a membership there and just go in there. If the weather's bad or if it's too hot, it's nice to go in there and get away from the weather. So I know that's a little bit nerdy, but I'm a scientist. I can't help it.
It's not nerdy. It's it's just funny that people have memberships to, I don't know, bookstores or something, or a library, and you got a membership at a museum.
Yes.
Okay. We are at the end of the 42 questions now, and the 42nd question is, what would your question to me be?
Coming from Australia, there's not a lot of buildings that are very old, and one of the things I've noticed here is just the age of some of the buildings. What's it like to live in a small town in Germany like this that's got such history behind it?
It's very heavy and it's a lot to take in, and it's very interesting connect to have to history, because we, while growing up you always learn history and know about the buildings and the battles and the world wars and everything, but these buildings have seen all that and they have lived through all that, so that's kind of astonishing. It's almost like having a person there all the time who has been there since 500 years or so. So it's very overwhelming, and I feel that it's also a privilege and a great opportunity to live close to really, really old buildings. It's very calming in a way, that they've been there. These buildings have been there since 100 years, and they have seen they have seen the world at its worst. So it's okay. You can still sustain even if things are falling apart around you. So it's very philosophically nice, and they're just very nice to look at.
Subscribe to The Science Talk to get your dose of science today.
Thank you, Justin.
No worries.